Captain Lee Min-ho gripped the metal railing of the bridge as the massive diplomatic vessel Unity's Voice drifted through the void of space toward the NIGMA Empire's capital ship. Through the reinforced viewing ports, he could see the alien vessel stretching for kilometers in every direction. Its dark hull gleamed with strange symbols that pulsed with blue energy, and weapon ports lined its surface like the eyes of a predator. "Captain, we're receiving their docking clearance," reported Communications Officer Young Hye-ri from her station. Her fingers danced across holographic displays as alien code scrolled past in streams of incomprehensible text. "Their translation matrix is online. We should be able to communicate without issues." Min-ho nodded, adjusting his formal diplomatic uniform. 3 months of preparation had led to this moment, humanity's first official contact with the galaxy's most powerful civilization. The NIGMA Empire controlled over 40 star systems, commanded fleets of planet-killing warships, and had crushed every species that dared to oppose them for the past 1,000 years. The docking procedure took nearly an hour. Human technology seemed primitive compared to the NIGMA's advanced systems that guided their ship with invisible energy fields. As the airlock sealed with a deep metallic clang, Min-ho felt the artificial gravity shift slightly. Even their gravity generators were more sophisticated than anything Earth had developed. Ambassador Park Ji-woo joined him at the airlock, her black diplomatic coat bearing the silver emblem of United Earth. She was humanity's best negotiator, someone who had settled trade disputes across dozens of human colonies without ever raising her voice. Today, she would need every skill she had learned. "Remember, Captain," she said quietly as they waited for the doors to cycle open, "we're not here to surrender or bow down. We're here as equals, even if they don't see it that way." The airlock hissed open, revealing a corridor that seemed to stretch forever. The walls were made of some kind of living crystal that shifted colors as they walked, responding to their presence with ripples of light. Strange mechanical creatures scuttled along the ceiling, maintenance robots with many legs and glowing sensors for eyes. Their NIGMA escort was a floating sphere of black metal covered in spikes. It spoke through a translation device that made its voice sound like grinding stone. "Humans will follow. No deviation from path. Council waits." The council chamber was breathtaking and terrifying at the same time. It rose hundreds of meters into the air with platforms floating at different levels, where various alien species sat in attendance. Min-ho recognized some of them from intelligence reports. The insectoid Zephyrians, who served as the NIGMA's accountants, the gas-breathing Vorthak, who maintained their war machines, and dozens of other conquered peoples who now served their new masters. At the center of it all sat the NIGMA High Council. They were unlike anything in Earth's databases. Each one stood nearly 3 meters tall, their bodies composed of what looked like living crystal that constantly shifted between different geometric patterns. Their faces had no recognizable features, just smooth surfaces that reflected light in hypnotic patterns. When they moved, it was with the fluid grace of liquid mercury. The largest of them, clearly their leader, rose from his throne-like platform. When he spoke, his voice came from everywhere at once, as if the chamber itself was talking. "So these are the humans, small creatures from small worlds at the edge of nothing." Ambassador Park stepped forward without hesitation. Around them, the various alien species watched with what Min-ho could only assume was curiosity. Many of them probably remembered being in this same position generations ago, before the NIGMA had absorbed their civilizations. "We come in peace," Park said, her voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. "Humanity seeks only friendship and mutual understanding with the great NIGMA Empire." The crystalline beings made a sound like wind chimes being struck by hammers. The translation system rendered it as laughter, though it sent chills down Min-ho's spine. "Friendship?" the leader asked, his crystal body shifting to a deep red color. "Your species controls 5 systems. 5. We have consumed empires that spanned hundreds of worlds. What could you possibly offer us?" Park remained calm. "We offer trade, knowledge, and cooperation. Humanity has developed unique technologies that could benefit both our peoples." "Tribute," another council member interrupted, his form flashing angry orange patterns. "Not trade, tribute. Your worlds will provide resources, ships and soldiers for our fleets. In return, we will allow your species to continue existing." The chamber fell silent except for the humming of alien machinery. Minho felt his heart racing as he realized negotiations weren't going as planned. These beings weren't interested in diplomacy. They were delivering an ultimatum. Park took a deep breath and stepped closer to the council platform. Her next words would either save humanity or doom it to conquest. "We prefer peace above all else," she said, her voice steady despite the overwhelming presence of the alien overlords. "But humanity has survived ice ages that lasted millennia, global plagues that killed billions, and wars that would destroy most species. We've fought through nuclear winters and asteroid impacts. We've rebuilt our civilization from ashes more times than we can count." She paused, looking directly at the NIGMA leader. "We ask only that you leave our worlds in peace. We have no desire for conflict, but we will not surrender our freedom." The crystalline beings erupted in that terrible laughter again. The sound echoed through the chamber as alien spectators watched the drama unfold. To them, humanity appeared to be nothing more than another primitive species making empty threats before inevitable conquest. The warning had been given. The first sign of trouble came at 0347 hours, Terran Standard Time. Lieutenant Commander Yoon, Sujin was monitoring the deep space communication array when her screen suddenly filled with static. She had been tracking routine cargo shipments to the outer colonies, but now every signal from the frontier sectors was dying one by one. "Ma'am, I'm losing contact with New Sol Colony," she called out to her supervisor. Her fingers flew across the holographic interface, trying to boost signal strength. Their last transmission was cut off mid-sentence. Within minutes, the situation escalated beyond anyone's worst fears. Busan Station, humanity's largest mining facility in the Outer Rim, went completely dark. Their automated distress beacon, designed to activate during any emergency, never even triggered. It was as if the entire station had simply vanished from existence. At Terran Defense Command on Earth, Admiral Kim So-ra was pulled from her sleep by the urgent chiming of her emergency communicator. The three-star admiral had served in the colonial wars 20 years earlier and had never forgotten the sound of real crisis. This felt different, worse than anything she had faced before. The command center buzzed with activity as officers rushed between stations, their faces grim. Massive, holographic displays showed the outer territories, with red warning symbols marking each colony that had gone silent. The pattern was unmistakable. Someone was systematically attacking human settlements. "Admiral, we're receiving partial transmissions from Jeju Prime," reported Communications Chief Park Dae-ho. His hands shook slightly as he adjusted the receivers. "The signal is weak and breaking up badly." The voice that came through the speakers was filled with panic and static. "This is Colony Administrator Lee Min-jung, under attack by unknown vessels. Our defense platforms are being torn apart. They're too fast or too powerful. Civilians are trapped." The transmission ended in a burst of white noise that echoed through the silent command center. Admiral Kim stood before the main display, watching as the red markers spread across their frontier territories. 3 major colonies, home to over 2 million people, had been attacked within a 6-hour window. The coordination was perfect, the timing precise. This wasn't random piracy or some local conflict. This was war. "Get me a full tactical analysis," she ordered. "I want to know what kind of ships hit our colonies and how they got past our early warning systems." The preliminary reports were devastating. Sensor data from automated monitoring stations showed massive energy signatures, ships far larger than anything in the human fleet. The attack patterns suggested advanced tactical coordination, with multiple strike groups hitting different targets simultaneously. Most disturbing of all, the attackers had somehow bypassed humanity's quantum communication networks, jamming distress calls before they could reach Earth. Captain Cho Hyun-woo, the Defense Command's intelligence officer, approached with a tablet full of data. "Admiral, based on the energy signatures and attack patterns, this matches the NIGMA Empire's fleet composition. These weren't raids, they were conquest operations." Kim felt her blood turn to ice. 6 months had passed since Ambassador Park's failed negotiations with the NIGMA High Council. 6 months of tense silence while humanity hoped for peace. Now the crystalline overlords had delivered their answer with overwhelming force. "Casualties?" she asked quietly. "We don't know yet," Cho replied, "but 3 colonies don't just go silent without massive loss of life. We're looking at thousands dead, possibly tens of thousands." The Admiral closed her eyes for a moment, thinking of the families who had been living their normal lives just hours earlier. Children going to school, parents working in the mines and factories, elderly couples enjoying their retirement on frontier worlds. All of them now victims of an empire that saw human life as worthless. In the emergency council meeting that followed, Earth's military and political leaders gathered via holographic projection from across the solar system. President Kang Mi-young appeared from her secure bunker on Luna, while General Ryu Jae-sung connected from Mars Command. The mood was grim as they reviewed the attack data. "They're testing us," General Ryu said, his weathered face showing decades of military experience. "The NIGMA want to see how we respond to losing our outer colonies. If we do nothing, they'll move closer to Earth. And if we fight back with conventional forces, we'll lose," added Defense Minister Song Ye-jin from her secure location. "Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. We saw that during the diplomatic mission." Admiral Kim stood at the head of the conference table, her uniform crisp despite being awakened in the middle of the night. Around her, holographic projections of humanity's leaders waited for her recommendation. She had spent her entire career preparing for moments like this, but the weight of the decision still felt crushing. "There is another option," she said, her voice cutting through the worried murmurs. "Protocol 7. The room fell silent. Protocol 7 was humanity's most classified military program, developed in absolute secrecy since first contact with the NIGMA Empire. Only a handful of people knew it existed, and even fewer understood its full capabilities. "Admiral," President Kang said carefully, "are you certain we're ready to take that step?" Kim looked at the tactical displays showing their devastated colonies. Somewhere out there, NIGMA Emperor Velthar was probably celebrating what he assumed would be humanity's quick surrender. The crystalline overlord expected desperate pleas for mercy within days, followed by complete submission to his empire. Her voice was ice-cold as she gave the authorization that would change everything. Protocol 7 is now active. Begin immediate implementation across all commands. Across NIGMA space, Emperor Velthar reclined on his throne of living crystal, satisfied with the day's work. His war fleets had performed exactly as expected, crushing the primitive human colonies with minimal losses. Soon the remaining human worlds would surrender, adding another conquered species to his vast empire. The Emperor's crystalline body pulsed with pleased colors as he contemplated the resources these new subjects would provide. Their technologies were crude but showed potential. Their worlds were rich in materials his empire needed. Most importantly, their spirit would be broken, making them obedient servants for generations to come. He was completely, utterly wrong. Lieutenant, Commander Choi Dong-min floated in the zero-gravity command center of the stealth vessel, Silent Thunder, watching holographic displays that showed NIGMA patrol routes throughout the Kepler sector. His ship was unlike anything in the standard human fleet, sleek, angular, and covered in metamaterial that bent light around its hull like water flowing over stone. "Target acquired," whispered his tactical officer, Sergeant Kim Nara, her voice. Barely audible even in the silent bridge. Through the quantum scope, they could see a NIGMA supply convoy moving through hyperspace lanes, 3 massive cargo vessels, escorted by 2 crystalline warships, carrying weapons and resources to reinforce their occupation forces. The Silent Thunder had been hunting this convoy for 6 days, using advanced AI prediction models to calculate their route. Unlike the massive dreadnoughts humanity had built for conventional warfare, this ship was designed for something far more dangerous: surgical strikes that would leave no witnesses and no evidence. "Remember, we don't exist," Choi whispered to his crew of 20 specialists. "We were never here, they never saw us coming." The attack began without warning. The Silent Thunder materialized from subspace directly behind the convoy, its experimental quantum torpedoes already locked onto target. But instead of explosive warheads, these weapons carried something far more devastating: nanoscale infiltration devices that could penetrate any known shielding. The first NIGMA escort ship never had time to react. One moment, it was cruising, so through hyperspace, its crystalline hull gleaming with defensive energy fields. The next moment, its own weapon systems turned inward, tearing the vessel apart from within. The crew's confused screams echoed across communication channels before being cut short. "Direct hit on Supply Vessel 2, reported Kim Nara. "Their cargo bay is venting atmosphere. Navigation systems compromised. They're heading straight into that asteroid field." The second escort ship managed to fire a few shots, but its targeting systems had already been corrupted by human AI viruses. Its energy beams struck empty space, while the silent thunder danced between the blasts like a shadow made solid. Within minutes, this ship too began attacking itself, its automated defense turrets spinning wildly as corrupted programming turned them against their own hull. The supply vessels tried to flee, but their navigation computers had been rewritten with human code. Instead of jumping to safety, they found themselves trapped in a gravity well, their engines straining against invisible forces that dragged them toward a nearby gas giant. "All targets neutralized," Choi reported into his encrypted communicator. "No survivors, no evidence. Convoy destroyed by apparent system malfunctions." This was happening across dozens of star systems simultaneously. The Silent Thunder was just one of 50 ghost ships that had been secretly constructed in hidden shipyards throughout human space. Each vessel was crewed by volunteers who had undergone psychological conditioning to operate in complete isolation, striking targets and vanishing without a trace. Captain Lee Soo-jin commanded the stealth frigate Phantom Strike in the Vega system, where a NIGMA battle group was supposed to be conducting training exercises. Her ship's advanced cloaking technology made it completely invisible to conventional sensors, but she wasn't relying on stealth alone. "Initiating neural network infiltration," reported her AI specialist, Technical Sergeant Park Min-ho. His fingers danced across quantum keyboards as lines of code streamed past on holographic displays. "I'm inside their command ship's main computer, beginning systematic corruption of their tactical databases." What happened next would have seemed like magic to observers from any other species. The NIGMA battle group, consisting of 12 massive warships, began behaving erratically. Their formation fell apart as navigation systems provided contradictory information. Weapons platforms that had functioned perfectly for centuries suddenly refused to lock onto targets. The flagship, a crystalline dreadnought longer than most, human cities, started broadcasting human classical music instead of military communications. Beethoven's Ninth Symphony echoed across subspace channels, while confused NIGMA officers tried desperately to regain control of their systems. "Sir, our main weapons array is firing on our own escort ships," reported a panicked NIGMA tactical officer to his commander. The alien's crystalline body flickered between colors of confusion and rage. "Impossible," the commander replied. But, even as he spoke, he watched his most advanced warships turning their guns on each other. Defense systems that should have protected his fleet were instead broadcasting false targeting data, making every ship appear to be an enemy vessel. Within hours, the entire battle group had destroyed itself in a chaotic firefight. The few survivors who managed to escape in life pods reported impossible phenomena. Their own ships had become possessed by malevolent spirits that turned their technology against them. Similar reports flooded NIGMA command centers throughout their empire. Supply lines that had functioned for millennia suddenly collapsed as automated cargo ships began delivering empty containers or refusing to follow programmed routes. Manufacturing facilities ground to a halt when their robotic workers started dismantling the very products they were supposed to build. Fleet Admiral Zexthar, commanding the NIGMA Third Fleet from his mobile fortress Conquest's Edge, studied the tactical reports with growing alarm. In just 3 weeks, his empire had lost over 200 vessels to what appeared to be systematic equipment failures. No enemy had been detected, no attacks had been observed, yet his forces were vanishing from the galaxy like smoke in a strong wind. "How are they doing this?" he demanded of his technical staff. The crystalline beings around him flickered with patterns of uncertainty and fear, emotions that few NIGMA had experienced in their centuries of conquest. Chief Engineer Morkoth, his body a deep blue shade of confusion, gestured at the holographic displays. The failures appear random, but the pattern suggests coordinated sabotage. Someone has infiltrated our quantum networks at the deepest level. What the NIGMA didn't understand was that humanity had spent decades preparing for exactly this scenario. Every diplomatic meeting, every cultural exchange, every moment of contact with alien technology had been an intelligence-gathering opportunity. Human scientists had studied NIGMA systems, identified their weaknesses, and developed countermeasures that turned the Empire's technological superiority into a fatal vulnerability. Dr. Yoon Hae-jin, monitoring the operation from a secret facility, deep beneath the moon's surface, watched as her AI children systematically dismantled the most powerful empire in the galaxy. Her artificial intelligences didn't destroy NIGMA ships. They convinced those ships to destroy themselves. "Status report," she requested from her primary AI, a quantum consciousness known simply as Artemis. "Operations proceeding within acceptable parameters," Artemis replied in a voice that sounded almost human. "NIGMA fleet strength reduced by 67%. Their logistical networks are collapsing. Estimated time to complete system failure, 4 weeks. The NIGMA had superior numbers, advanced weapons and technology that seemed like magic to most species. But humanity had something they lacked: centuries of experience fighting impossible odds and winning through creativity, adaptability, and the willingness to think beyond conventional warfare. The empire that had conquered the galaxy was being defeated not by superior firepower, but by their own technology turned against them by human ingenuity. General Krixtal's crystalline body flickered between deep red and black patterns of rage and confusion as he stood before the massive holographic display in the NIGMA Empire's central command center. The display, once showing the proud extent of their galactic dominion, now resembled a patient dying of some mysterious disease. System after system was going dark, not from enemy attacks, but from their own technology turning against them. "Sir, we've lost contact with the Andorian sector," reported his aide, Commander Velnox, her crystal form trembling with barely contained panic. "All 17 planets have gone silent. Their defense platforms are no longer responding to Imperial commands." Krixtal's massive form towered over the control stations, where dozens of NIGMA technicians worked frantically at quantum interfaces. These were the Empire's finest technical minds, beings who had mastered technologies that could reshape matter at the atomic level, yet they were helpless against whatever was systematically destroying their civilization. "Show me the Zephyr trade." "Route," he commanded, his voice causing the chamber's crystal walls to resonate with harmonic frequencies. The holographic display shifted to show what had once been the Empire's most profitable commercial lane. Massive automated cargo vessels, each the size of a small moon, had carried resources between star systems for over 3 centuries. Now they drifted aimlessly through space, their AI navigation systems apparently corrupted beyond repair. The cargo ship Eternal Prosperity just jettisoned its entire payload into a black hole, reported technical specialist Morthex. "When we tried to override its commands remotely, it sent back a message in the human language saying, 'Access denied,' followed by what our translators identify as human laughter." Similar reports flooded in from across the Empire. On the industrial world of Kethmore, manufacturing robots had stopped producing weapons and were instead building what appeared to be human musical instruments. The orbital defense platforms around the capital world of Zarthon were randomly firing their weapons into empty space, while broadcasting human poetry across all communication channels. "How are they doing this?" Krixtal demanded, slamming his crystalline fist onto the command console. The impact sent shockwaves through the quantum field processors, causing several displays to flicker and distort. Senior Technician Kexlar, his body a nervous yellow-green color, stepped forward with a data tablet. "We've identified traces of unknown code in our quantum networks. It appears to be some form of adaptive virus that learns and evolves as it spreads through our systems." "A virus?" Krikstal's form flashed angry red. Our quantum encryption is unbreakable. No primitive species could possibly penetrate our security protocols. But even as he spoke, more systems began failing throughout the command center. The life support indicators started displaying human nursery rhymes instead of atmospheric readings. The tactical displays began showing cartoon images of Earth animals instead of fleet positions. Most disturbing of all, the central computer began speaking in perfect NIGMA language, but with a distinctly human accent. "Good morning, General," the computer said pleasantly. "This is your daily reminder that resistance is futile. Have a wonderful day." The terrible truth began to emerge through fragments of intelligence gathered by NIGMA agents across their crumbling empire. During those first diplomatic meetings with humanity, when the NIGMA High Council had dismissed the humans as primitive and harmless, human observers had been quietly studying everything around them. Ambassador Park Ji-woo and her team hadn't just been there to negotiate. They had been conducting the most sophisticated intelligence operation in galactic history. Every device they had been shown, every system they had observed, every piece of technology they had encountered had been secretly analyzed and catalogued. Dr. Lim Chang-ho, the head of human quantum research, had been part of that diplomatic mission. While the NIGMA had focused on demonstrating their superior technology, he had been identifying weaknesses. The Empire's greatest strength, their interconnected quantum networks that allowed instant communication across vast distances, had become their fatal vulnerability. The humans mapped our entire technological infrastructure during a single diplomatic visit, Kexler reported, his crystalline body now a sickly pale color. They identified backdoors, security flaws, and design weaknesses that we never knew existed. Meanwhile, deep beneath the surface of Earth's moon, Dr. Yoon Hae-jin monitored the systematic collapse of the NIGMA Empire from her secret command bunker. Banks of quantum computers hummed around her as artificial intelligences she had helped create worked tirelessly to dismantle the most powerful civilization in the galaxy. "Artemis, status report," she said to her primary AI. "The NIGMA Empire's collapse is proceeding ahead of schedule," replied the artificial consciousness. "Their communication networks have been completely compromised. Military coordination is impossible. Supply lines have been severed. Estimated time to complete societal breakdown, 6 days." Hae-jin watched the real-time data streams showing NIGMA, systems shutting down across dozens of star systems. This wasn't destruction through brute force. It was something far more elegant and terrifying. Humanity had turned the Empire's own technology into a weapon against itself. "How many casualties?" she asked. "Zero," Artemis replied. "All NIGMA military and civilian personnel remain alive and unharmed. We are simply removing their ability to wage war or maintain their empire." This was the most remarkable aspect of humanity's response. While the NIGMA had launched their attacks with the intention of killing millions of human colonists, humanity's retaliation was designed to disable rather than destroy. Every system that failed was programmed to preserve life while eliminating the Empire's capacity for aggression. Back in the NIGMA command center, General Krikstal watched helplessly as his civilization unraveled. Planets that had been connected for millennia were now isolated islands in space. Fleets that had conquered hundreds of worlds were stranded without navigation or communication. The empire that had stood for thousands of years was collapsing in mere months. "Sir," Commander Velnox reported, her voice barely above a whisper, "we're receiving a transmission from the human homeworld." The main display activated, showing Admiral Kim So-ra speaking from her command center on Earth. Her expression was calm but determined as she addressed the NIGMA leadership. "General Krikstal," she said, "you attacked our colonies without provocation. You killed our people without mercy. But unlike you, we do not wage war through genocide. Your empire is finished, but your people will survive. We suggest you use this time to reconsider your approach to galactic diplomacy." The transmission ended, leaving the NIGMA command center in stunned silence. The empire that had believed itself invincible had been defeated not by superior firepower, but by human ingenuity, and a form of warfare they had never imagined possible. The NIGMA Empire was dying, killed not by weapons, but by its own technology turned against it by the primitive species they had so foolishly underestimated. Dr. Shin Da-un stepped carefully through the crystalline archway that had once been the grand entrance to the NIGMA Imperial Palace. Her boots echoed strangely in the vast empty hall, the sound bouncing off walls that still pulsed with faint, bioluminescent patterns. 2 years had passed since the NIGMA Empire had vanished overnight, leaving behind one of the greatest mysteries in galactic history. The xenoarchaeologist adjusted her scanning equipment as she moved deeper into the abandoned structure. Around her, the palace maintained its otherworldly beauty, flowing crystal formations that seemed to grow like living things, holographic art installations that still projected ancient NIGMA cultural scenes, and floating platforms that responded to her presence by glowing softly with welcoming light. "This is incredible," she whispered into her recording device. "The architecture is completely intact. It's as if the inhabitants simply stepped out for a moment and never returned." Her research team spread out through the palace complex, their scanners detecting no signs of violence, no evidence of struggle, no indication of what had happened to the billions of NIGMA citizens who had once called this world home. Dr. Kim. Jae-woo, her lead technical specialist, approached with readings from his quantum analyzer. "Da-un, you need to see this," he said, his voice filled with wonder. "The life support systems are still running. The environmental controls are maintaining perfect atmospheric conditions. Even the food synthesis units are operational, as if they're waiting for someone to come home." They explored deeper into the palace, discovering throne rooms where crystalline rulers had once made decisions that affected entire star systems. The walls displayed holographic records of NIGMA history, their rise from a single world to a galactic empire, their conquests of hundreds of species, their technological achievements that had made them seem invincible. But there were no bodies, no signs of evacuation, no clues about where an entire civilization had gone. In the central archives, Dr. Shin made a discovery that changed everything. Hidden behind layers of quantum encryption was a message addressed to future visitors, written in perfect human language. To whoever finds this record, the message began, "Know that the NIGMA people are safe. They have been relocated to a distant galaxy where they can start fresh, away from the cycles of conquest and domination that defined their empire." This was humanity's gift to them, not destruction, but a second chance. The message was signed by Dr. Yoon Hae-jin, the brilliant scientist who had led humanity's technological response to the NIGMA invasion. Over the following weeks, Dr. Shin's team uncovered the full scope of what humanity had accomplished. Using consciousness transfer technology that was decades ahead of anything previously thought possible, human scientists had carefully extracted the minds and memories of every NIGMA citizen in the Empire. Billions of beings had been peacefully relocated to a galaxy so distant that they could never again threaten other species. The process was completely voluntary, Dr. Shin read from the archived files. Each NIGMA citizen was given a choice: remain in this galaxy and face the consequences of their empire's actions, or accept relocation to a new home where they could build a peaceful civilization. Every single one chose to leave. The relocated NIGMA had been given planets suitable for their crystalline biology, complete with the resources they needed to rebuild their society. But they had been stripped of their weapons, their warships, and their records of conquest. The new NIGMA civilization would have to learn to survive through cooperation rather than domination. On the military worlds that had once served as the Empire's fortress systems, Dr. Shin's team found massive weapon factories standing empty but undamaged. Planet-killing cannons sat silent in their orbital positions. Fleets of dreadnoughts floated powerless in space, their crews long gone but their hulls intact. Humanity could have destroyed all of this, noted Dr. Park Min-jun, her military historian. They had the technology to turn the NIGMA's own weapons against them. Instead, they chose preservation over destruction. The investigation revealed that humanity had spent months carefully documenting every aspect of NIGMA culture, art, and knowledge before the relocation. Libraries full of crystalline data cores had been copied and sent along with the relocated population. Even their most ancient artifacts and cultural treasures had been transported to their new home. In her final report, Dr. Shin documented the message that humanity had broadcast to every species in the galaxy following the NIGMA's disappearance. We warned them to leave us in peace. We kept our word about the consequences. But unlike them, we gave them a chance to start over, something they never would have offered us or any other species they conquered. Let this serve as a reminder that humanity prefers mercy to vengeance, even when dealing with those who showed us no mercy. The report sent shockwaves through galactic civilization. Species that had lived in fear of both the NIGMA Empire and humanity's response began to reconsider their understanding of human nature. Here was a species that had developed the power to destroy their enemies completely, but had chosen instead to give them a second chance at life. Ambassador Li Su-jung, now serving as humanity's chief diplomatic representative to the Galactic Council, faced questions from dozens of alien species about humanity's intentions. "Are you planning to relocate other species?" asked the Vorthak representative, his insectoid features twitching with nervousness. "Only if they force us to," Li replied calmly. "We prefer trade and cooperation to conflict, but we will defend ourselves and our allies if threatened." The empty NIGMA worlds became a pilgrimage site for species throughout the galaxy. Beings came to see the preserved cities and contemplate the implications of humanity's unprecedented act of mercy. Some called it the greatest example of compassion in galactic history. Others saw it as a terrifying demonstration of human power. Years later, long-range telescopes detected signals from the distant galaxy where the NIGMA had been relocated. The transmissions suggested a thriving civilization that had learned to focus on art, science, and exploration rather than conquest. The former empire builders were becoming explorers and scholars in their new home. Dr. Shin published her findings in a book that became required reading at universities across the galaxy. The title was simple: "The Day an Empire Chose Peace." In it, she documented not just the NIGMA's relocation, but the profound message it sent about the possibility of breaking cycles of violence and revenge. Standing on the observation deck of the abandoned NIGMA Palace, looking out at the crystal gardens that still bloomed with alien beauty, Dr. Shin reflected on humanity's choice. They could have become conquerors themselves, using their advanced technology to build an empire even greater than the NIGMA's. Instead, they had chosen to be teachers, showing the galaxy that there was another way to resolve conflict. The NIGMA Empire was gone, but its people lived on somewhere among distant stars, hopefully learning to build rather than conquer. And humanity had proven that sometimes the greatest victory comes not from destroying your enemies, but from giving them the chance to become something better. The end.